We're headed out to the barn to do some chores. I wanted to take you along for the ride, but I can't talk to you on the way to the barn because it is so windy today. You won't be able to hear me on the way to the barn, but we're gonna get our shoes and coats on and head out in just a minute. Okay, here we go. You guys ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We made it. Now you should be able to hear me. So it's a cold, windy day. There's not much to do in the house. There's not much we can do outside, but we're gonna clean the barn a little bit today. It's a little bit of a mess. And while we were doing that, I was thinking I'd like to share with you a few of the things that we looked for when we purchased our property here, our homestead property, and some of the things that I would recommend people look for when they're purchasing future homestead properties, because I know a lot of you are thinking that, you know, maybe this year, this spring, whatever, that you take the plunge and buy your first homestead, or maybe you're just dreaming and you're looking at properties to see what's in your area. There's a few things that I think are really important, so I'm just going to go over a few of those with you today. Ultimately, so I won't go into a lot of detail about us buying our homestead because I've told that story before and it's on the blog. But one of the really big factors that we were pretty concerned with when we bought our current property is covenants and homeowners associations. And I think depending on where you live in the country, it just depends on how much of a concern those may be. So I know for at least for us, in the towns south of us, if you get into the properties that are closer around town, which are ideal for a lot of people because of work and school, everything's broken up anywhere from like 5 to 40 acres into what they call ranchettes. That's what they call it here. And there's nothing wrong with those. They can be a really great option, but you have to be careful or at least pay attention to what the covenants are or the homeowners associations say. When we started to look into some of those, we realized a lot of them were limiting how many animals you could have. Some of them don't allow certain types of animals. Some of them dictate how many buildings you can put up or what color your buildings could be. And of course, the reason for those rules is to keep the neighborhood or the area cohesive and clean. But when you're homesteading and you might want a certain number of goats or cows or horses or whatever, it can be a little bit limiting. So if you're okay with staying within the limits, that's cool. But otherwise, do pick your property carefully. And for us, the homeowners associations was a big deal. With our property, it doesn't have covenants and it doesn't have homeowners associations. The downfall of that is that it's way far out. So we drive farther, but for us, that was worth it. You cleaning? Oh, it's a mess in here. So it's been cold, snowy, frozen, or muddy for the last, I don't even know how many weeks. And so the barn is in an embarrassing state of needing to be clean. Like, I'm embarrassed, you guys. It's bad. Okay, so one of the other things that I think is really important if you're looking for a homestead property or dreaming or shopping is to look at potential. I think it's the tendency of a lot of us, including myself, to think pretty small when you first start. And on one hand, there's absolutely nothing wrong with contentment and being okay with small, and that's totally fine, but be careful of not boxing yourself in too early. So if you know that an acre is all you're ever gonna want, that's fabulous. But if you're a little bit more open-ended with your plans, make sure you're buying a property or acreage or enough land that you have room to grow. For Christian and I, we bought this place. It was 67 acres, and we knew we needed at least that much land, maybe more someday, because we just didn't know what our future plans would be concerning cattle or horses or whatever, and we didn't want to be boxed in. So for us, our compromise was that the house, and you've heard the story of our house, The house wasn't as nice or fancy or as big, but we got more land for our money, and that was worth it for us. And that might not be the type of compromise you want to do, which is fine. That was just our situation. But make sure what you're buying has enough potential that you have room to grow.
There.
What are you guys doing?
Making a poop ground. So we can take that over to there. Yeah.
I mean, I can just do it.
Poop wrap.
I can just do it for you. Seriously.
No.
Okay. That's good, dude.
Wait, pat it down.
Another consideration, how far is the property or the land or the location from town and activities? That can be a really big deal, and it's really easy to get caught up in the romance of the farm and the barn and the homestead and the garden, and maybe not being quite as realistic as you should be about how many times you're going to have to drive to town a week or a day, and what that looks like in terms of gas and mileage on your vehicles and all that good stuff. So for us, we live quite a ways, probably more than most people would be willing to live as far as distance. We're about 35 to 40 miles from town, and for us it works. We like it. We school at home, we work at home. It just is totally fine with us. But if you are more of a town person or you have more connections in town, more activities, it's a lot of driving. And honestly, if we were doing a lot in town as far as a ton more kid activities, maybe school, whatever, this would be too far. It would be a lot. I would be spending my life in the car. So I'm not saying living as far away as we do will never work for anyone else, but do be considerate of that. And I know for us, we have to be pretty careful of what's like sort of kid activities we say yes to and which ones we just opt out of, which has been a little bit of a tension for me as a mom, but we just are more intentional, and I know that it's not going to hurt my kids to maybe not do every single lesson or swimming thing or birthday party in the whole world. There's a trade-off, so just keep that in mind. Town is about 40 miles that way. Don't stand in front of it, dude.
Yeah?
You're gonna get knocked over when it comes over there. Get out of the way. There you go. Push.
Oh. We got it!
Good job.
Yahoo! We got it!
Good job.
Yeah.
Now you just can't get stuck in the mud. Oh, don't tip it over. Before anyone yells at me, I told them I would dump it for them, but they insisted that they do it themselves. Welcome to the world of the winger kids. Another thing I think it's really wise to take into consideration is weather and water. And that's one thing you really don't have a lot of control of, and no matter how creative you get, you can't really change it in the future. So do pay attention to the weather patterns around the land that you're looking at, or the property or the region you're looking at, and pay attention to that. Another piece of that is the shade or the sunlight on your particular property. Now, if it's a big enough property, it won't make as much of a difference because you can always move your garden or your growing locations. But, you know, if you're on a really small plot of land and the whole thing is covered by gorgeous shade trees, it's going to be tough to grow vegetables. Same goes with if the soil is mostly rock or the place doesn't get a lot of rain. Those are things you could overcome with raised beds or sprinkler systems or whatever, but that could really make a big impact in your future homesteading goals. Ultimately though, I don't know if there's such a thing as like a perfect homestead. There's always going to be something that's not ideal that you get to overcome, and that's one of the reasons I think homesteading is so good for us as humans, because it helps us learn how to overcome obstacles and get creative. Okay guys, it's your turn. This was not a comprehensive list. It was just some thoughts rattling around in my brain as I'm out here cleaning the barn. So I'd love to know what you consider to be deal breakers when you're shopping for a homestead, or if you are dreaming of a homestead. And that's it. I better get back to work before my crew fires me. But don't miss next week. I'm going to attempt to revive my sourdough starter that's been in the fridge for about 3 months. I think it may be dead. We'll see what happens, but you won't want to miss it. All the high drama on the homestead. Thanks for watching, guys. See you then.
Stuffed eggs
Where did you find them?
in the chicken coop
Maybe they're-
and the nesting boxes.
In the boxes. Maybe we're actually gonna get eggs again, do you think?
Yeah.
Let's put them in a safe place so the cats don't knock them over.